Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Labbing It. Today we're going to switch things up from our usual in-house Veeam tutorials and start to dive into something a little different. A purpose-built hardware appliance designed specifically for Veeam. Scality were kind enough to send me one of their Artesca appliances to try out in my lab, and I've been hands-on putting it through its paces. Artesca is a lightweight, enterprise-grade storage solution that's simple to deploy and optimized for the modern backup needs. So in this video, we're going to walk through deploying and configuring the hardware, setting up the storage, integrate it with Veeam, run a backup job, and then explore some of the other Artesca settings. So let's dive into it. Okay, so we are at the sort of the out of band management interface, or the IPMI as it's called on these systems. Let's log in. And basically this is a typical view of what you would see in an out of band management interface, essentially just giving you all sort of physical hardware related information on the system and how it's performing. Um, Probably not really much to go through here that people probably may not have seen before, but you can quickly have a bit of a look at the component info. You can see that this system's backed by an AMD processor. It's got 1216 gig DIMMs, and we can have a look here. We've got only just got one of the power supplies connected, but it comes with dual power supply. And it's probably not going to show much anything in here because the actual system's powered off, so I've only got the out of band management interface plugged in at this stage. Not to dwell too much on this, let's log in to the remote control system, which is pretty much where we want to be. It's got a HTML5 or a Java plugin. We can hit the launch console, and soon enough we'll get a virtual/physical view of the actual system itself. So it's currently in the powered off state. So let's power it on. Goes. Okay, so it's booted up and now we are prompted in for a login. So the documentation has the default username and password. It's Artesca-OS is the default username, and there's also the default password. Now I've actually since logged into this previously and had a bit of a play around prior to doing these videos, and I've changed the password. But there's the default password on the main documentation site from Artesca. So we're logged in, and basically this is a pretty simple task. I thought it was going to be a little bit complicated, but this is pretty straightforward in what needs to be done here. And again, the documentation describes everything you need to do, and you can sort of follow the bouncing ball. But essentially, we just run this is the network configuration basically program. So we'll just go Artesca installer configure front end. Again, this is in the documentation, very simple to follow. This actually does take a little while just to go through, not so much in terms of the input that we need to provide, but it takes a little bit of time to actually configure itself in the back end. So the first thing it's just going to ask is what do you want the default username? So for the web interface, so once we've set up the network configuration with all the IP addresses, and then we log into the user interface to actually manage the Artesca. This is the username or the default administrator username that we'll use. So Scality is the default, so I'm just going to leave it as that. Again, you can provide a suitable password. And now we've just got a few options, and this will probably depend on what type of setup you have. So I've just got a single node server, and I've only got 2 network ports plugged in. There are 4 ports, but I've only got 2 at the moment, so I'm just going to choose option 1. And it's telling me that it can see which of the 2 ports are actually activated, that are actually plugged into the network. You can see number 3 and 4 are not. So it's asking to select the 2 interfaces that I want to use. So I'll select number 1, and I select number 1 again, so it's taken away 1 from the option above. So what was number 2 in the option above is now option 1 in the second set. So 1 and 1, and it's just confirming these are the oh no, sorry, that's asking if I want to use a 3rd or a 4th, which I don't. So you just hit the enter. Now we get that confirmation, and we are ready to continue. So these are the 2 network interfaces that we're going to use. What type of bonding mode you want to use. I'm not using any sort of link aggregation set up in my networking, so I'm just doing active backup. And here's the start of the the network configuration. So asking for the node address that we want to give it, and I'm going to go with 172.16.30.26, and it's also asking for the subnet mask, so /24 in my case. Default gateway IP address. I think we can just I don't think this really needs any internet access, but actually it might do for some licensing requirements. But if I just put that in there, yep, that's fine. Name servers, you need to, okay, so we need to enter our DNS servers. So 192.168.10.10 is my main lab DNS server. And I do have another one, 10.14. So as you can see, there's a maximum of 2 DNS servers that can be applied. Now just asking for the time zone. It's already come up as Australia Melbourne, which is what I've previously configured, so I don't need to change that. But you can change that relevant to your situation. I'm not going to worry about NTP server. You can set one up if you have it, and it starts with the first bit of the configuration. And then we are now asked for what do we want the management interface IP address to be. So we applied the node IP. That's for node communication. Now we need the management IP. Now, because mine's is just a single node setup and it's not overly complicated, you do have the option to use the same IP address as the node IP for your interface, which is what I'm going to do here. So 172.16.30.2016, but you could use a load balancer IP as well. And hit enter. Now we're going through the first set of the main configuration. So anything that's sort of delayed here, I think I'll speed up the video. Okay, so that took a few minutes to complete on my end. Some of those execution components there took it took 2 or 3 minutes each, so it did take a little while. But we're at near the end here, so now it's just asking us to configure the data listening IPs. Essentially, these are going to be the IPs that whatever software you might be using that's going to actually look at these at the storage that's on this device. So in my case, I'm going to be using Veeam. So Veeam will connect to a repository via a data IP. So I'm just going to choose virtual IP for my setup, and then it's just going to ask what virtual IP do we want to configure, and I'm just going to use 30.27. Again, depending on, in a production environment, you might do this a little bit differently. So I'll be happy with that. Do we want to use additional virtual IPs depending on your use case? Not for me. We're just going to keep this nice and simple and hit enter. And now it's just going to go ahead and configure those. Now just after a base domain name, so just what I use in my lab, use pretty much every other video that I've completed, jtairlines.internal. Going to add that into the configuration. And that's it. It's all configured. So Artesca configure front end domain succeeded. So that took me all of 22 minutes. Just looking at the recording here, that's on my side, 22 minutes. That's pretty darn good, really, when you think about it. So there was minimal input from myself to get this up and running. It's just some basic network questions, and then it went away and built out the configuration. So we are now ready to log in. So we created that node IP, which was or the web interface IP, which is 172.16.30.26, and we've got a virtual IP that we'll use to target our repositories on .27 on the same network. So what we're going to do now is we're going to head over into the user interface now, and we'll quickly, pretty much, you'll see how quickly it is to build a repository and have it ready for Veeam to use. Let's do that. Okay, so we're just in our management machine. So let's log into the Artesca management interface, user interface. So just to note, it's on port 8443, so it's our management IP, which is the same as our node IP on port 8443. Username is the default, which is Scality, and then it's just the password that we used. Type a little better, here we go. And this brings us straight to the overview page. As you can see, there's already a little bit of information here on some work that I've done prior to these videos, as I was just familiarizing myself with the Artesca platform. But we're going to treat this this next bit as if we've just logged in here for the first time and nothing's been configured. So this is pretty straightforward, actually. There's nothing much to it. So all I needed to do is come to the data management tab. I clicked on data services as the first thing. So I just wanted to create an endpoint name. So within Veeam, when we target an S3 repository, we're going to use s3.jtairlines.internal as the host name. Here we don't get any choices on the storage location, so it's US East 1. Obviously, you know, when connecting to S3 repositories, say in AWS, you get a whole bunch of different locations. This is just configured with US East 1. I think you can create some other ones if you want, and it doesn't have to be in any sort of real format. You could actually create a storage location called Melbourne or Sydney, I think, if you wanted to. But in our case, we're just leaving it with US East 1. There is a section for creating new locations. Hit the create button. This just takes a couple of seconds because I think it's got to build out a new certificate. And once this is done, then we're pretty much almost halfway to setting this up. All done. All I need to do now is come into the account section. As you can see, there's some pre-populated accounts here that I've already completed as I was having a bit of a play around. But we're just going to start from scratch here. So there's a tab here, Start Configuration for Veeam. So it's actually ready-made for a Veeam solution. We click on here, we create an account. I'm just going to call it Veeam Backup. There's also the option here for Veeam Backup and Replication or the Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 solution. So depending on what your end game is or what you're going to be using this Artesca for, you'll create an account based on the use case. So for now, Veeam Backup and Replication, and you can create on the very same Artesca a Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 account as well. So you can use it for both purposes. Bucket name, just call it Veeam Backup Bucket. Immutability, obviously this is pretty important. Most people are going to obviously want to have this selected. If you're like me, probably in a demo, you might want to have this unchecked, but I'm just going to leave it checked anyways, just for the sake of it. We'll configure some immutable settings within Veeam that adds to this or complements this. 1 terabyte. So here we have we just set the size of the repository. Obviously there's a maximum size which we can check back in the overview, but 1 terabyte is good for us. Continue. That's pretty straightforward, pretty quick. And now we just get the details that we need for the actual Veeam configuration. So there's a section here around certificates. The Artesca has its own built-in CA, and it issues a certificate every 3 months. So that's not a problem. It just means that you would have to reconnect any repositories that you make in Veeam every 3 months to update the certificate. The alternative to that is to use Artesca's built-in CA, which is valid for 10 years, or like what most people will do is replace the certificate using a custom or an external certificate authority. So there's a few choices there that you can choose from. And if you want to use the Artesca built-in CA, you can just download the certificate here and you import it into your Veeam server into the trusted root authorities, and away you go. And down here we've just got a few configuration or parameters here that we're going to use as we build out our Veeam environment. So I'm just going to leave this up and running. So I'm not going to click finish just yet. So I'm just going to jump into the Veeam server real quickly because pretty much the configuration is now done. Once we hit that finish button, we're done for. So let me jump into Veeam. So under backup repositories, so under backup infrastructure, backup repositories, just where we normally add our repositories, we'll add a backup repository. It's an object storage repository and it's an S3 compatible storage. Here, just give it a name. I'm just going to call it the Artesca repository. And we're going to click next. So the service endpoint, which is s3.jtairlines.internal, that's the one that I just created moments ago. The region US-East-1, which is the default the Artesca system, so we don't need to change anything there. And now we need to apply some credentials. So I haven't applied those, so I'm just going to add those in now. So I need the access key. Oops. That's an old access key, by the way, as I was playing around, so I don't need that anymore. Access key, just copy it and paste, then grab the secret key, copy and paste, and just call it the Artesca key, the S3 key. That's not how you spell key. And I'm just going to use direct connection mode. If you want the data to be processed by another machine, a gateway server, you can choose other servers that are in your inventory. I'm just going to choose the direct mode. Everything here is on-prem and all close together. Bit of a think. Now, just to be mindful of the most recent iterations of Veeam, this automatic bucket creation enabled is there by default. We don't need that for this solution, and as a matter of fact, I'm pretty certain if I try to create this, if I try to build this with this option enabled, it's going to fail. Let's have a look. Browse. So just to back up, selecting our Veeam backup bucket that we created, then we put everything into a folder. I'm just going to call it Veeam. Okay. I'm not going to limit the consumption, even though actually we can do that because we made it 1 terabyte in size. And we need to check this box. So if we hit next, it's going to tell us that object lock is enabled. So we need to have this checked. And I'm just going to make things immutable for 1 day. Obviously, that's not a sort of a real world example. In production, you'd have this set to 14 days, 28 days, and so forth. Just be mindful of what your retention requirements are with object storage. There's some things to consider based on what you set here, based on actually what the storage is actually going to retain in the long term. There's a couple of good websites. I might put one in the link of this video just so that you can have a look and understand what object repository is and actually what its obligations are with regards to Veeam and the way that it handles backup data. But for now, we'll just leave it at 1. Next, and okay, yeah. So this is the issue that you face with this automatic bucket creation enabled. So all we need to do here is just turn it off, and away we go. Amount server. So when we're doing our recoveries, we need to nominate amount server. I'll just choose. This is usually my mount server, mail proxy 1, and we hit. I don't think we need to worry about helper appliances. Okay, that's fine. And click next, and click apply. And that's going to go away and add that repository in. So we can just go back here and just hit the finish button. The repository is obviously already created. It's just giving us a summary of the details or the config that we need to use for the Veeam configuration. So we just hit finish, and the repository is now complete. Next and finish. So that's all done. So what we can do now, just to test the configuration, I'm going to create a new backup job based on some virtual machines. Just going to call this Artesca backup job so that I understand exactly what I'm doing for this particular job. Just going to add a couple of virtual machines in here. Let's have a look what I can choose. Let's choose this one. This one will do. 2 servers is good. They're not very large. Next, backup proxy. Now I always choose my mail proxy 1. And here we select our new repository, Artesca. We apply our retention policies. So I'm happy to just keep it for 7 days. I don't need any GFS. And what I always make sure I do when I create backup jobs, it's very important that I like to enable encryption. And I'm pretty happy with that. Click next. I'm just going to double check whether, yeah, actually I will configure, I will configure a weekly backup as well. And we're good here. Yep, that's all good. That's all pretty standard. Don't need anything here. Do I need to enable application aware processing? I'm just going to leave it unchecked. I don't need it for this particular demonstration. And let's run this at 10 p.m. every night. And let's run the job. So, with any luck, things will start happening here and we'll start protecting our virtual machines to our new Artesca repository. Look, that's pretty simple, pretty basic. It's a lot quicker to configure than a Linux hardened repository, although Veeam have released their ISO of the Linux hardened repository, which does simplify things somewhat, but this is pretty amazing, to be honest. Configure this all up, within 20 minutes, having all the networking sorted, and then it's another further 5 to 10 minutes to log into the interface, set up your service location, set up your account, and then just add the details into Veeam and away you go. So pretty impressive, to be honest. So I'm going to keep this video running. I want this backup job to complete, but I'll fast track this process, and we'll talk about things once it's complete. Now, just while the backup is running, just want to show just some of the metrics that are available within the Artesca system, just to give you a bit of an overview of how the system is performing and what actions are actually running at the time of say a backup job. So Artesca uses Grafana monitoring, which is a really awesome dashboard of various types of metrics. Just note that obviously in my environment, I'm using a really basic lab setup, so it's not a production grade. I don't have production grade infrastructure or anything like that. So the Artesca has actually unfortunately been limited by that. So some of these metrics here probably don't necessarily look ideal, but that's just a limitation of my environment, not the Artesca itself. But it's pretty cool just to see all the various types of metrics that you can see here on the screen, and basically telling you what actions are actually running at the moment. Obviously, you can see all the operations and so forth. So that's something that I think is really cool to see, and obviously in a real production grade environment would probably see some really awesome numbers here. But yeah, it's all in real time, which is really cool. So so that's just something to be mindful of. And then just also in the Artesca platform as well, you can see some sort of high level Artesca metrics as well, just on the system itself and how it's performing. So, CPU usage, memory usage, and so forth, this throughput. And you can also get a Grafana look as well of the actual node itself. So the metrics here are just a little bit different, but another sort of real-time view of what the system is doing. So yeah, so you can see you've got both there, easy to view, and there's a lot more in this that you can look through, that might be beneficial. But yeah, I thought this is really cool. Um, this is something that you probably don't get with like a Linux hardened repository or something like that, where you'd have to install a monitoring agent on the server to get this type of metric. So you get this all built in with Artesca. Okay, so the job is complete. Got 2 successful, so that's all well and good. So just to see where you would recover your data, now that we've protected our data to the Artesca, you'd find it under backups and then on object storage. So if we click on here and if we have a look at our Artesca backup job, and then you can see the 2 workloads that we just protected. If we want to do any sort of recovery, we just right mouse click here and we've got all the various options there. We can restore guest files, we can restore to various platforms, to cloud, and so forth. But just to have a quick view here, let's just open up open up this backup file off the Artesca. So we're just going to do a file level restore. I won't go through the full restore, just open it up just so you can see what it looks like inside the Explorer. It looks very much the same as any other type of restore you would do, whether it's on an Artesca or a Linux hardened repository and so forth. But yeah, loads up nice and quickly, and here you can perform your file level recovery for the file that you're looking for, and away you go. So pretty basic, pretty simple, pretty easy to use. And obviously, yeah, you can restore the entire VM, restore the virtual disks and so forth. So there's a myriad of options that are available to you for restoration. So you're not just locked into restoring just back to the original platform. You can restore to various platforms and so forth. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so now that that's completed, I just wanted to cover off one aspect of the Artesca configuration that I think is pretty common usage within an organization, and that's just around the identity management. So how we authenticate users into the Artesca system. So if I jump back into here, and if we go under the identity tab and down the left hand pane here, we'll see the identity providers. We have the ability to use an external directory of some kind to help us provide access to this system using an alternative directory. So obviously you can create a whole bunch of user accounts here, and for all the users, it depends on how many users are going to be accessing the system, and then you can just send out those usernames and passwords to each of those users manually. In our case, we don't have anything here. We've just got the default username, Scality, which is what I'm logged in with. You can create groups. So if you've got multiple users and then you wanted to provide specific roles to a particular group, so maybe not everyone's going to be an admin, but maybe someone might have full management over a particular account. You can do that through here. But to make things or life a little bit easier, it's always, I think, is good to use an external identity provider. In most cases, it's going to be Active Directory. In most cases, that's how I see it. So let's set up Active Directory here using LDAPs to make that connection. We'll see how that looks. So the first thing I need to do is just jump into my Active Directory server and just create a group. So in my AD, if I come into groups and I create a new group called, I'll just make one for Artesca admin. So this is going to be all users in this group will be an admin to the Artesca system. Click OK, go into properties and then just add the users. I'm just going to use my own admin account for now. Click apply and click OK. So that's the group that I really want to target for users to have actual full access to the Artesca system. So let's go and set up the LDAP's connection. So yes, add identity provider. IDP type is LDAP. You just give it a name. I might just call it JTL LDAP. Active Directory. And here we provide the connection. So you need to ensure that you've got LDAP set up. I think it's all set up by default if you've got a modern domain controller. Let's test the authentication. Okay, we've got a failure there. It could be a DNS issue. Let me just check. Yeah, it's just a DNS. I'd have to go and figure that out later, but I'll just use the IP address for now. There's no big deal there. And then just we need something to authenticate against. The test that authentication, that works well as well. Now, in 99% of cases, you're going to want to use LDAPs, which basically just provides a secure connection. You just basically import the certificate from the LDAP server or your domain controller, the computer certificate, and you import it into the Artesca, and then you can create an LDAP's connection. Just for simplicity, I'm just going to ignore that for now and just use basic LDAP, but I wouldn't recommend using LDAP at all. If you're going to, if and when you use LDAPs, and just import the certificate from the from your domain controller, and away you go. So I'll just do LDAPs for now. That's all good. Testing connections, beautiful. Let's continue. Okay, so the first bit to an LDAP connection is to allow what type of users or which users within your directory do you want to see inside the Artesca system. So basically, as you saw before, there was only one user in the user list, which is the local user account Scality. So what I'm going to do here is go back to Active Directory, and here are my users. So I'm just going to what it's asking for is the distinguished name of the user group or the user container that you're going to use for LDAP. So the easiest way to get the distinguished name, if you don't know it off by heart, is just go actually first use the advanced features option in Active Directory, then go to your users container, and obviously if you've got subfolders in your environment, you can still use the root here, or you can be more specific. You might have another subfolder called admins or something like that maybe you would want to, or IT team or something like that you might want to be more specific with. But just for the demonstration purpose, I'm just going to just use my default users container. You go to the attribute editor tab, and then you see the distinguished name, and all you need to do here is just really copy and paste this. You might know this off by heart anyway, so you don't actually need to come into AD to look for it, and just punch that into here. I don't change anything else here. I don't think there's any need. This is if you want to be a little bit more specific to what type of users will actually, like if you want to filter things out a little bit so you don't see every user, you can actually filter things out a little bit more. And also add, so if you do have multiple folders, you can use the subtree as well. So it will actually show all users in this container plus any other containers or folders within. And then it just provides a little bit of details around how the user is going to be mapped for Artesca, using the mail attribute for each user. So all of my user accounts have a mail attribute. So in this case, admin@jtairlines.com. So that's how I'm going to be. That's the login method for these users into the Artesca system once this is all set up. Let's continue. So that was the users, and now we'll do the groups. So it's the same thing. I'm just going to go back here. I'm going to grab my groups, grab that distinguished name, view, copy, and then go back in and paste. And again, you get some similar options around filtering, but I don't need to change anything here. So I'm just going to go apply and import. So now I've done the user groups, well, the user folder and the group folder. Apply and import, and voila, everything syncs in. That might take a little bit longer if you've got thousands of users or something like that, but in my case, I've only got about 20 users, 20 fake users, so to speak. And configure roles for LDAP. I'm just going to skip and exit this just for now. I don't want to do it from this point of view. I just want to show what we can actually see now inside the identity section of the Artesca. If we go to users now we see a whole bunch of users. Now, in our case, we're not going to assign everybody a role to the Artesca. It's only going to be specific people. So we can do it via here if we want to. Or now we also have groups, and as you remember, I created that Artesca admins group with a member count of 1. And what I want to do here is use this group as a way to effectively group a set of users to be the admin of this Artesca system. And all I need to do here is just really tick these two boxes, which means they've pretty much got full access to this Artesca, and hit save. And if you go in here, you'll see what members are in this group, which is just my admin account. Now, in the future, if I want to add additional members, all I will need to do now is just manage that through Active Directory. So I would add another user into this group, and that will effectively sync up into the Artesca system, and then that particular user will have that same admin access as well. That's it. I don't need to do anything else. That's pretty much set. Now, the only one thing I want to do, in addition to into this, actually, let's just leave it at here for now, because I just want to show that there's also MFA that you can configure as well, which is really awesome. So we're seeing more and more of this, obviously, over the last few years, where people are building out their user interfaces and consoles with MFA, which is really awesome. Veeam does that as well. So let's just log out. So using the default Scality user account here, I'm going to log out, and now I'm just going to, hopefully this works. And my password. And sign in. License and terms of use, so it looks like it's accepted my credentials, and accept. And now I'm in. So now I'm in as my local AD account, and now I have full access to the environment, which is really awesome. So the other thing I just wanted to quickly show is there's an ability here to set up MFA for users. So for instance, here's my JAdmin account, and we've got multi-factor authentication. I could hit the enable MFA. There's register new device on next login. So obviously that's ticked by default because I haven't configured it MFA just yet. So it's going to tick that automatically. I think after the first successful MFA registration, that box becomes an optional checkbox. So if someone loses their phone or changes phone and need to reconfigure, you can come back up in here and tick that box, a little bit similar to those that might sort out MFA for Azure and so forth. Save MFA, and let's log out, and we'll log in again, and I'm almost certain we will be prompted to configure MFA. There we go. So I'm pretty sure it just uses some of the there's a MFA standard, and I'm pretty sure it's just following the standard. So all the usual common MFA tools will be enough. So I just use Microsoft Authenticator. Obviously you can't see me using my phone, but I'm just going to set this up. Go. Okay, one-time code. It's just about to expire, so I might just let it sit out because it's also asking for my device name. So 075486, and the device name, so just Justin's phone, and hit submit. And we're in with MFA, and just to have a little bit more fun here, let's just log in again now. Asking for my one-time code, which is now different, 479305, and I'm in. So that's pretty cool. So I always like to have a look at that, because especially with all consoles and user interfaces now for these different types of devices and software and so forth, MFA is quite prevalent. Configuring identity management is also, I think, pretty important. Being able to use LDAPs is a really cool and easy, neat feature to streamline user access, so that they don't have to keep hold of a whole heap of different usernames and passwords and so forth. Because I think now with MFA, that just makes life a little bit easier, especially with password management. Okay, I think that's where I'll leave it for now. Hopefully that's been somewhat beneficial. I know it's been a little bit of a long video, but this has all been thanks to the team at Scality, who were kind enough to actually send me one of their actual physical servers to my home for me to plug in and have a bit of a play around and showcase its capabilities. I know from a personal point of view, we're seeing a lot of opportunities in this space at the moment. I think there's a genuine market for simple on-prem repositories now, that when we talk about backups and how important it is for organizations to make sure that they're using the latest technologies available to them. Things like immutability and all those type of things. Just having that sense of security and resilience in your on-prem environment is really critical. Artesca provides an alternative option for on-prem object storage, and of course, if you are a Veeam environment, this has been sort of purposely built for the Veeam platform, as you saw when we were setting up the accounts there with a section where you just say, I'm setting this up for Veeam, and it pretty much does everything in the background for you. It's pretty awesome. So hopefully, yeah, this has been somewhat beneficial. Definitely reach out to the team at Scality if you have any questions, or definitely send them through to me. Leave some comments if you like, or if there's something you want to see a bit more specific to the Artesca system. Maybe you know a feature of maybe another product and you want to know, is that something that's available in Artesca? I can certainly maybe help answer, or at least find out the answer for you. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and we'll talk again soon.